Let's have a different discussion altogether. Matters the standard gauge railway when it comes to transportation of cargo from the port of Mombasa to the port inland of Nairobi. It is a decision that has caused a lot of uproar, not only among political leaders from the coastal region, but also when it comes to truck drivers and business owners. Let's now speak to Maina Kiai, a human rights activist, joining us from a city centre studio. Mr. Kiai, thank you so much for talking to us here on KTN News Centre. Matters human rights. How is it in connection with the SGR?
Well, good morning, Brenda, and thank you for having me today. Okay. There are a number of issues that are affected by human rights issues that come up. I think the first one is the question of discrimination. The way the directive from the state has come, it means that Mombasa is being discriminated against by moving the port from Mombasa, from the sea, basically to Nairobi and later on to Naivasha. That is a discrimination because it means that people of Mombasa are paying the cost of the mistakes of the SGR more than anybody else. Mombasa is dying, Mombasa is empty, Mombasa is getting impoverished. So that's the first part, is the discrimination aspect. The second part is around freedom of information. We have no information as Kenyans about what was signed between us and the Chinese that then led to this loan that we are paying for that built the SGR. What does seem to be sure is that the SGR as it is, even if they keep maintaining people, forcing people to put their cargo on it, cannot pay for that debt that is there. So we're asking ourselves, why can't we see it? If we are the ones paying for it, why are we not seeing this loan agreement? What is there that is being hidden? The third thing is then the question of choice. If the SGR is indeed good, if indeed it is efficient, if indeed it is effective, you don't need to force people. People will do it just by themselves. So here's where you have the issue of around the positive obligation of the state to not impoverish people. The state should be providing jobs. The state should be providing education and a standard of livelihood. But by forcing people to put their goods on SGR, it means, one, that SGR issue is not right. And secondly, it means that, and the second thing it means is that we have no choice in the matter. It does seem to me that as it is now, placing your goods on the trucks is actually a much more feasible, efficient process than it would be on the SGR. So the questions around those things that become very important. Yeah. So,
Mr. Kiai, but as much as you're talking about, transporting, cargo from the port of Mombasa to Nairobi using the SGR, there's a suspension that was given by the government as they look for a lasting solution. And, political leaders from that region were in that meeting only for them to come out later on and say we were not in agreement. So who is lying to who when it comes to truck drivers and business owners in the coast region?
I was in Mombasa just recently, and I can tell you for a fact that that directive has not been suspended practically. It may have been suspended at a press conference by the Minister of Transport, but in real terms, things are going on as they were before. That trucks are not being used to ferry goods, despite what people at Kenya Ports Authority are saying. So what people are asking for is, look, if this is a real directive to suspend or to rescind, and people are saying, you don't suspend an illegality, because even forcing people is illegal, it's unconstitutional, as Yashkai has said over and over again. It's unconstitutional. You don't suspend an illegality, you rescind it, you revoke it. So, but this needs to be put in the Kenya Gazette, it needs to be put in writing, so it's clear to everybody. But a press thing where you're in front of camera and say it's now suspended, but behind the scenes you start saying things are, go on as normal, is illegal, it's wrong, it's insulting to people of Mombasa. The truck drivers are complaining still, the town is still dead, there's nothing going on there. So it's one of those things you ask yourself, why does a government have to lie? Why does the state have to lie to people?
So, Mr. Kiai, are we looking at a possibility then? Is it possible for the truck drivers and business owners to have a meeting with the government, a consultative meeting to come with a lasting solution instead of, the weekly demonstrations that have been happening in Mombasa, which has affected business in the coast region?
Well, the business has already been affected, so it's not about affecting business. So it's already bad, so it's hard for it to get worse. I think the bigger issue is that, look, everybody would like a dialogue, everybody would like to talk, but you want to talk when there's good bona fides, when people are being honest and they're coming in good faith. So it's up to they've said over and over, everybody in Mombasa has said over and over, they're willing to talk. There are coalitions there, there's Okoa Mombasa, there's Fast Action, that are all working around trying to deal with this problem. So the question they're asking is, if the state is serious, if this regime is serious, then they should go to Mombasa and meet and have discussions, and they can see for themselves. They have got the figures, the facts, everything. So it's so that when people resort to using the right of freedom of assembly, it's because they're pushed, they're pained, they are hurt. And so they've tried every other means. And then you notice as well, it's only after weekly protests that the state then said, oh, let's try and meet. Before that, they were refusing. They refused to meet. They don't want to deal with people. So it's kind of sad, again. It's kind of an indictment on this regime, that until people start rising up, they don't care. They don't think about it. They just think that we are just, little people that they can step over and do what they feel like. So that arrogance is what's getting people in Mombasa. All
right. So let's talk about the issuance of transparency around, the SGR loan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, first of all, no one knows what was signed. No one has seen the loan agreement. There was a time when Uhuru Kenyatta said he would provide a copy of the loan agreement to the media. And then weeks later they said, no, we can't. It's secret. It cannot be secret because it's us as taxpayers paying for it. So we are the ones who should see it. It cannot be that this is about some people in high up who know what the contents are and we don't know. It may appear that what they're trying to hide with that loan agreement is our provisions that probably hurt our sovereignty. And those are questions then you begin asking whether what is behind that they can't show us. Is our sovereignty affected? Is our ownership as a country of the port of Mombasa compromised? We don't know that. The second thing around transparency is that it appears there is a local company that is behind or part of this company running the SGR. It's being given by us 1.3 billion shillings a month to run the SGR. We have not seen the agreement. We're told there's a company there that is behind a local entity that is a part of this Chinese-run company, but we don't know who they are. People have tried to get the paperwork from the registrar of companies, and the file is missing. All of a sudden, file is missing. When those kinds of things happen, when you see those kinds of hidden elements and lack of transparency and that kind of opacity, then you have to ask yourself, what is going on? Are we being taken for a ride? And that's the bigger question we have to ask, because and again, with this constitution we have, there's also something very important called public participation. So in fact, in signing the loan, was there public participation? The answer is no. In the agreement with this company, was there public participation? No. In this directive to force things onto SGR, was there public participation? No. So what you have is a regime in power that thinks it is still KANU in the old days before multipartism, before the new constitution. That is where the problem is. And this has to be dealt with both legally, yes, from a human rights perspective, but also politically.
All right, so SGR is here to stay as we speak because it's already in operation. We have SGR, that's transporting Kenyans from Nairobi to the coastal region. We have SGR that's supposed to transport cargo, from Mombasa to Nairobi. We have SGR that was recently launched by the president, from Nairobi to different parts, of the Rift Valley region. Let's talk about Mai Mahiu. But my question is, what does all this have to do with devolution?
It has everything to do with devolution, because part of it is that within the devolution system, it means that the regime in Nairobi, the central government, the central regime, the central authorities cannot do things for counties without consulting them, without bringing them and them participating and them being part of it. Now the SGR is there, for sure it's there. But what people are asking for is, look, let the market rate, let us see what happens, let it operate. Yes, if people want to put their goods and use the port in Nairobi as opposed to the natural port in Mombasa, let them have that choice and have that option. But then don't force people onto doing something there. Now, the SGR cannot, to be honest, as Dave and Dee has shown in all with calculations and charts and everything, the SGR cannot pay for itself. So at some point, the bigger question we need to ask, Brenda, is who will pay back the loan to China that was taken, that was illegal, that was illegitimate, and that was overpriced? Who will pay back? Is it us as taxpayers, or is it those who took the loan? Because there's no doubt in my mind that the size of the loan is not equivalent to what we got. We did not get value for money, and it therefore smells as though somebody took some money. And those are the people who signed the loans, who negotiated for it. They are the ones who should pay, rather than us as taxpayers. It is unconscionable. You know, somebody goes and signs a loan in our name and then makes us pay, and we don't see it. They benefit, we don't benefit. What is this about? So this is going to be a white elephant. It might just end up sitting there doing nothing. Or if we're going to use it, then somebody has to pay that loan. And it shouldn't be innocent taxpayers. Let those who signed the loan, let those who negotiated the loan pay back that loan. Because you know what? They can afford it, for sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Maina Kiai, human rights activist, for your sentiments when it comes to matters SGR, you know, the weekly protest. We hope that the government will finally find a lasting solution with the truck drivers and business owners in the